that that is just not going to happen. The issue of recruitment and the statement that people are recruited into the lifestyle, frankly, and I will say it and I will make a lot of people mad, that is absolutely the most ignorant sort of fear-mongering that you can imagine. That it's dangerous to families and children. My family and children are going to be at risk because these gays want their History Month. That, again, is an absurd statement. The greatest risk to people's families and children, to put it in theological terms, is the wickedness and sin that exists in your own heart. That's the greatest risk to your family. It's not what other people do or believe or say. You're your greatest risk to your family. I admire people that want to live their life on a Christian basis, and that is a great basis upon which to live your life and make personal decisions and choices. How you interpret that faith, I'm discovering, is highly subjective and a matter for much scholarly debate. Ironically, I was emailed many biblical verses. I will say I don't believe I'm condemning the city of Norman to hell by supporting the proclamation, but I was emailed many biblical verses, and I read those biblical verses. I didn't see the word homosexuality referenced in any of them. I saw the terms sexual immorality referenced in those biblical verses, and I believe that to be a term that, whether you think homosexuality is included in that, is your opinion. The issue then comes down to, for me, on this personal journey of this decision, I never dreamed that a proclamation would be put forth, and I frankly didn't believe this proclamation, after I read it, should be the subject of the debate and discussion that it's become, but this proclamation has drifted away from what it is, and it's being turned and co-opted into a larger debate that it is not and should not be a part of. As I said earlier, this is not a debate on this issue, the larger issue of homosexuality. This is an acknowledgement and a recognition to foster discussion and understanding for those that are interested in having it. Nothing more, nothing less. As to the assertions and comments that this is the first step on a slippery slope, I'm not sure what that slippery slope is. I know what it is feared to be. I just don't believe that to be true. And is this the end of it? Probably not. I suspect that members of the GLBT community will continue to push for equal protection and rights under the law until that they feel that they have made the strides and gains in that area that are appropriate. There was the misstatement, and I want to reiterate it, that laws already exist to protect these individuals. No, they don't. There are limited legal protections, and you have the right not to be beat up as you're walking down the street, regardless of your orientation in this regard. That clearly is illegal. And we have hate crimes laws that enhance that, and it's appropriate in my opinion. The use of the hate crimes laws to imprison ministers, as one gentleman said, is absolutely the most absurd thing I've heard in a long time. But that I can discriminate against someone in my employ for being homosexual, and there's nothing they can do about it. I can deny them housing in one of our rent houses because they're homosexual, and there's nothing they can do about it. The people I know who are active in this cause are not campaigning for acceptance. They're not campaigning for approval. They're campaigning for equal treatment under the law that the rest of us enjoy and take for granted. So I don't have a tremendous problem with that. I don't think this proclamation is going to lead to the destruction of the city of Norman, of our value systems. The people who indicate as such, that to me, the emails that I received and the voicemails I received indicated to me that, and I didn't come into this with a strong opinion one way or the other, that there absolutely is a need for this type of a proclamation and an opening of this type of a dialogue. That brings me to the last step on my personal process of assessing this, which is, what is my responsibility as a council member in a representative democracy? And I actually did some research on that subject as well to see if my suspicions and core beliefs were appropriate. And that is, clearly, the overwhelming majority of the people who contacted me were opposed to this. And as I indicated, for varying degrees of elaboration on their reasons. So it's my obligation as a council member to be the proxy for the majority and just stand up here and follow the will of the majority regardless of my personal conviction and belief on this subject. Is it appropriate for me to check that? And I think there are people here who would say, yes, absolutely, that is your responsibility. You're my council member and I'm opposed to this, along with the majority of people in your ward and in this city, so you should vote against it. Well, I disagree, and I think if you go read on the role of a representative in a representative democracy, that's my obligation or responsibility. My obligation and responsibility is to exercise my independent judgment and to take into consideration and weigh all the facts and all the information and all the opinions that have come to me, which I've done. And I personally believe that one of my core responsibilities and the core responsibilities of this government at all levels is not to protect the majority, it's to protect the minority. It is to advocate for those and protect those that don't have an equal voice. And on this issue, I do not believe that this community has either an equal voice or equal protections under the law. And that is what's going to drive my decision on this. Not emotion, not theology. And if you disagree, I challenge you, if you are a man, get another buddy of yours and go out to the mall and hold his hand and walk through the mall holding his hand. Or put your arm around him and see how you're treated if you get from one side of the mall to the other. And then tell me that there's no discrimination and that that those people enjoy, and I hate to say those people, but that community enjoys all protections, that Norman is some idyllic place where we treat everybody equally. That's fantasy. If you believe that, I think you're deluding yourself. The last thing that has weighed on this issue for me is my own children. What do I want to send to them? Now, the difference is I don't think that members of this community are trying to recruit my children into this lifestyle, but there's an issue that they're going to see here. And what example am I going to set for them? Am I going to stand by my convictions? Am I going to do what I believe to be right and appropriate? Or am I going to bend to the mob? Am I going to bow to the mob? I represent every citizen in the city of Norman, and in particular in Ward 3. So the example that I am going to set for my children is that I am going to stand against the majority for the minority. I am going to approve this proclamation, and if that gets me bounced off this council and back as a private citizen, I accept that. That is how this process works. And I'm going to encourage my colleagues that are here this evening to support the proclamation.